Hello and welcome to another how-to video by tryopensource.com. This time we're looking at transition layout and for this episode there's a long video and there's a short video. If you just want a quick overview, nip back to the channel and check out the short video. If you want the full in-depth look, keep watching. The layout is pretty much as it is here. So I'm already doing a flying mount and dismount as the first video shown. So the feet are going to be not in the shoes while I'm running out of transition, so the shoes are free to be sat on the bike and they're elastic banded in place. I've set up everything to the left side of my bike if I've put my bike in forwards, because I want to run on the left side of my bike. Therefore it's natural to pick everything up and have it on this side of the bike. I've got everything laid out in order that I'm going to want to put it on, aside from the number belt being below the run shoes. So I've put my helmet on top of my run shoes and not on the bike, because I don't want it to fall off the bike. That means I have to find it, and it means I've probably put a bit of damage on my helmet if it does. So I've got it resting on the run shoes so it's nice and stable, it's not going to blow over in the wind, and that's the first thing I'm going to put on as I come into transition, because most races have a rule that if your helmet's not done up before you touch your bike, you get a penalty. The easiest way to avoid that, helmet on, done up before you do anything else. Once I've got the helmet on, I've got a number belt pre-opened and pinned in place by my shoes so it doesn't go wandering down transition with a bit of a breeze. I can just pick it out, step into it, pull it up, no issues. Then when I've got my helmet on, the number belt on, I'm free to grab the bike. I'm already sat on the right side of it, so I'm ready to jump on and I can just run out of transition and away I go. A quick note, if you are planning on doing a flying mount on the bike, it's really useful to see what the bike out looks like. Not just where to go to in transition, but maybe 200, 300, 400 metres further than that to see what sort of gradient it is. Because you want to pick a gear that's going to be suitable right up until you've got an opportunity to change. And when you're straight out of transition jumping on and pedalling, you're not going to be able to change gear straight away. This is always where it's good to pre-ride the course as well. If you can ride that little bit and see what gear you need to be in, you're off to a better start when you get out of T1. Walk to every single entrance and exit of the transition. A big problem for me, especially in large races, is finding your bike again. And you might think your whatever colour bike is the only one there. If you've got 1,000, 1,500 people, guaranteed not to be. So I find mentally rehearsing what you're going to do in each of the transitions, so walking from the swim exit to your bike, picking out landmarks that you can spot to see if you're near your bike, then walking from where your bike is to the bike out, and then from where your bike is to the run out, means that when you come to do it, it's already fresh in your mind when you're doing it in the race. You know where it is, you've picked out your landmarks that you can see next to your bike, and everything's just that little bit quicker. You don't want to be thinking when you're running out of the water trying to get your goggles off, where is my bike? Because that's a recipe for losing seconds and seconds. If you've already walked it 2 or 3 times, you can just autopilot straight to it. Long before you get to your race, it's a good idea to have a think about what you're going to take and how you're going to carry it. Now, my decisions on this are all based on what is my A race of the season, and typically my main race is going to be a race that I'm flying away to. So if you're flying away to a race, unless you're hiring a car, you're likely to be staying in a hotel near to the race. My preference is to cycle to the race, so try to stay somewhere within 5-10k, and you want to be able to carry everything that you need for the race on you to cycle to it. So I always choose a rucksack. I think it's a big bonus not having a massive amount of stuff, because then you don't have anywhere to tidy it away to, and if you're used to racing in the UK, carting about lots and lots and lots of stuff, if you do go abroad to race and suddenly you can't have all that stuff, it might be a bit of a worry. I tend to take the bare minimum of stuff I need, just the nutrition I need for that day, no more. A set of race shoes, obviously, a helmet, a set of bike shoes, all the various bottles and bits and pieces you're going to need on the bike. I take 1 extra set of shoes, I'll explain what that's for in a minute. I take a swimming hat always. It's always provided for you, but if it's cold, it's worth sticking a second swimming cap on. I always take 2 sets of goggles with a different lens choice. You're not quite sure what the sun's going to be like early in the morning. If it's just rising up above the water, then you're really going to want a tinted goggle, otherwise you won't be able to see anything. And obviously, stuff the wetsuit in the bag, chuck it all in one big rucksack, sling it on your back, good to go. Once you've set out your transition, you can put all the unnecessary stuff that you took extra, perhaps spare layers to keep you warm if it's a cold race, perhaps your spare shoes if you're feeling brave, stick them back in the rucksack. Most races will have a bag drop, or you can stick it at the side of transition, away from your bike, away from where everyone else is trying to put their stuff, just to keep the transition area nice and clean. A big priority for me when setting up a transition is not only so that I have a quick transition, but to make sure I'm not impinging on the person next to me's space. Because that's a big gripe of mine at races, when other people bring lots of stuff, you turn up a little bit late and you can barely squeeze your bike in. The spare shoes, I always like to have a second set of shoes, primarily because I like to walk down to the swim wearing something, not because, you know, I can't walk over rough ground with bare feet. It's not ideal, but if you get a cut in your foot just before you start racing, that's a nightmare situation. And lots of races seem to go in for transitions that aren't lovely soft grass like this, but have a bit of a gravel path on them, which is non-preferred. The reason I take shoes, not flip-flops, is you need something to warm up in. And one set of shoes means you can stick them on, you can do your warm-up, you can walk down to the swim start. If you bring an old set of race shoes that you don't really care about, you can leave it by the race start, and then if for whatever reason they're not there when you get back, it's no big deal. Check the rules and see if you are allowed to have a race number on underneath your wetsuit, or if you have to put it on in T1. Some races say you have to put it on in T1, other races allow you to swim with it under the wetsuit. If you're allowed to swim with it under the wetsuit, it's a godsend. It means you can get rid of this big horrible belt, and I tend to use a tiny little shoelace, pin the number onto the shoelace, tie it around myself, chuck the wetsuit on, good to go. The reason I prefer to have a small shoelace is it's a lot less bulky, and if you spent all that money getting a nice fast tri-suit that you're going to cycle in, hoping it to be nice and aerodynamic, it's nice to get rid of all that excess rubbish that you're wearing. And similarly, if I'm pinning a number, I'll always pin it, and I'll never just stick it to a race belt. I'll try and get a good amount of pins in the top of the number to keep it nice and secure on, and I'll pin it from inside out so that the minimum amount is showing on top of the belt. If you've got double numbers, it's good to pin them back to back and have it so that if it flips up, it's showing the right way. Then you can stick it on, wind blows it up, still got your number showing, it's on a number belt, so you can rotate it from your front to your back, or vice versa, whatever you need. A quick note about accessories and bits and pieces on the bike. Because I tend to race short distance races, sprint and Olympic distance, I don't have anything else other than helmet, shoes and number next to the floor on transition. It makes it nice and tidy so that the person coming next to you doesn't have to fight with your massive whatever it is to be able to fit their bike in, and it keeps things simple for you. The less stuff you can have, the easier it's going to be for you to get a nice fast transition. For sprint distances, I don't have any bottles, any nutrition, nothing. It's not a long race, you don't necessarily need to be tanking back water or tanking back gels like nobody's business. Well hydrated before the start, not a problem. Olympic, it's a little bit longer. There is a bit more time in it, and you are going to need to take something on board. I tend to run one bottle cage. I'll have a few gels in that bottle mixed with water, good to go. Nothing else anywhere. If you do need more gels than that, a couple places that I find good to store extra gels. On the top tube, bit of electrical tape on the tab of your gel onto your top tube, and you should just be able to rip the gel straight open as it comes off your bike. Eat it, that's not too bad. If you've got a good tri-suit, you can actually fit a gel or 2 or 3 gels up the legs of your shorts. But you do need to try that, because normally when you run, all the gels fall out, and that's a bit of a disaster on race day. One final thing to note, sunglasses and socks. I don't use either. If I'm racing, I won't normally have a road helmet, I'll have a time trial helmet, and that's why I prefer time trial helmets with a visor. It saves you picking up your sunglasses, putting them on, just put your helmet on and with the visor and you're good to go. If I'm racing in a normal road helmet, I'll normally not bother with sunglasses and just squint, mainly because I don't want to have to waste time picking them up, putting them on.